All right, buckle up everyone, because today we are taking a deep dive into a world of epic battles, incredible stories, and some of the most dedicated fans in all of fandom.
You're talking about Warhammer.
That's right, Warhammer. Now, I've seen the incredible miniatures and artwork. This is more than just a tabletop game, right?
And it's a whole universe you can explore. We are talking tabletop battles, novels, video games.
Wow.
You can even just dive into the amazing artwork and lore.
Okay, so
It all started back in the 1980s with Games Workshop, and they've been building these intricate worlds ever since.
So when we say Warhammer, we're actually talking about two huge settings, right?
Yeah.
We've got Warhammer 40,000, the sci-fi one,
Yes,
and the Warhammer Age of Sigmar, the fantasy setting.
exactly. It's like choosing your own adventure path.
Ooh.
Do you want to journey into the grim darkness of the far future?
I mean,
Or explore a vibrant fantasy world reborn?
the grim darkness does sound pretty intriguing.
Oh, it's intense.
Let's start there. What's the deal with Warhammer 40,000? What makes it tick?
Well, it definitely lives up to its tagline.
Which is,
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
whoa.
Humanity has spread across the stars, but there's no peaceful utopia out there. It's a constant fight for survival
Against what? What are they fighting?
against all sorts of unimaginable horrors.
Like what?
But they're united under the Imperium of Man.
Okay.
This vast, sprawling empire ruled by the Emperor of Mankind.
Emperor.
However, there's a twist.
What's the twist?
The Emperor is basically a living corpse kept alive by this ancient life support machine called the Golden Throne.
Wait, what? A living corpse?
Yeah, pretty dark, right?
That's, pretty hardcore, even for a grim, dark future.
But that's what makes Warhammer 40,000 so unique, right?
Yeah.
It's a universe where even humanity's greatest heroes are flawed and facing impossible challenges.
So who are these heroes fighting? I mean, you said unimaginable horrors. Give me some specifics.
Oh, there are tons. You got your Space Marines,
Okay.
humanity's ultimate weapon.
What are they like?
Genetically engineered super soldiers organized into chapters,
F
each with its own distinct culture and fighting style.
So like different special forces units, but on a galactic scale?
Exactly. And then there's the Astra Militarum, formerly known as the Imperial Guard.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Countless ordinary men and women who make up the rank and file of the Imperium's armies.
So it's not just a galaxy of super soldiers.
No.
There are regular folks mixed up in all this.
Oh yeah, they're definitely caught in the middle of all the cosmic chaos.
Oh, man.
Then you've got the alien threats.
Okay, like what did I?
First up, we've got orcs.
Orcs? Okay.
Think savage, green-skinned warriors obsessed with fighting.
They sound kind of fun in a chaotic sort of way.
Oh, they're all about that warrior age energy.
Oh.
And surprisingly good at putting together crude but effective technology, even if it is held together by spit and hope.
Oh, wow. Resourceful.
You also have the Eldar, an ancient psychic race with advanced technology.
Cool.
But they're burdened by this really tragic past. A lot to unpack there. We can get into it later, but trust me, there's some serious lore behind the Eldar.
Okay, so we've got orcs and we've got psychic aliens. What else is out there? I mean, you said there are tons of threats.
Well, we haven't even touched on chaos yet, but for now,
Okay.
let's talk about the big one. The most terrifying threat.
Okay, hit me.
The Tyranids.
Tyranids.
Imagine a hive mind species that just consumes entire planets, driven by an insatiable hunger to devour all biomass in its path.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Planet-eating aliens, that is nightmare fuel right there.
It's a lot to handle.
So we've got super soldiers, orcs, psychic aliens, and now planet-eating monsters. Warhammer 40,000 is definitely living up to its grim, dark name.
It really does.
Yeah.
But as bleak as it seems, there's something captivating about this universe.
Really?
It explores this idea of human resilience, this struggle for survival against impossible odds, and the choices we make when facing unimaginable darkness.
I can see that. It's like holding a dark mirror up to our world, but on this massive galactic scale.
Right.
Okay, well, before we get too lost in the grim darkness, maybe we should switch gears and head over to the other side of Warhammer. That fantasy world, Age of Sigmar.
Okay.
What can you tell me about this world? It's a bit less bleak, right?
It is. Age of Sigmar is all about magic, myth, and epic battles.
Okay.
But to really understand it, we need to go back to its roots, to the world that came before.
Oh, okay.
The old world of Warhammer Fantasy.
So Age of Sigmar is like a sequel to Warhammer Fantasy.
You could say that, yeah.
Cool. What was this old world like?
Picture a world inspired by medieval times,
Okay.
but with a much grittier and more dangerous feel than your typical high fantasy setting.
So less knights in shining armor and more of a constant struggle for survival.
Exactly. There were knights and dragons, but
Wow.
everything had this darker edge to it.
I like.
You had the Empire, think Holy Roman Empire, trying to hold on to power against all these encroaching forces of darkness.
I can see it.
And then you have dwarves living in mountain strongholds, nursing grudges that span centuries.
Oh, classic dwarves.
Then there were the high elves.
Okay.
Elegant, powerful, but also prone to arrogance and a bit of infighting.
That's about right.
And then, of course, you can't forget the dark elves and the wood elves,
Right.
each with their own distinct societies and roles in the world. Oh, and then there were the Skaven.
Hold on, back up. Skaven. What are Skaven?
Imagine a race of intelligent, technologically advanced rat people
Rat people.
living in this vast underground empire, always plotting and scheming in the shadows.
Oh, that's kind of creepy.
They had crazy inventions and warpstone-fueled technology. Their entire society was basically built on paranoia and backstabbing.
Okay, rat people with advanced technology. That's a wild card. So this old world, it sounds like it was full of conflict and tension, like a powder keg waiting to explode.
It was, and eventually it did in this
Wow.
cataclysmic event known as the End Times.
The end times.
The forces of chaos just overwhelmed the old world,
Ah.
shattered it into pieces.
So that's it. The world just ends.
Not quite. That's where Age of Sigmar comes in. From the ashes of the old world, Age of Sigmar rises.
Dramatic.
Sigmar, the god king of humans.
God King. Okay.
He survived the destruction and forged a new reality, the mortal realms.
War realms.
These 8 distinct dimensions, each tied to a different type of magic, creating this incredibly diverse and fantastical landscape.
So the world was shattered, but then reborn as something even more fantastical.
Exactly. And in this new reality, Sigmar created these champions to fight for him,
Who are they?
the Stormcast Eternals.
Stormcast Eternals. Okay.
They're immortal warriors, imbued with magic and forged in lightning.
Okay. That's pretty badass. So they're basically the fantasy version of Space Marines.
You could say that, yeah.
So are they fighting against the forces of chaos that destroyed the old world?
Oh, yeah. The forces of chaos are still a major threat in Age of Sigmar.
Okay.
They're constantly trying to corrupt and destroy the mortal realms.
Oh, no. So even though the old world was destroyed, Age of Sigmar inherited a lot of its conflicts and complexities.
Exactly. The destruction of the old world left its mark on the mortal realms.
Makes sense.
And the past continues to shape the present in all sorts of ways.
It's a lot to take in. Both 40K and Age of Sigmar just sound like these universes with endless possibilities for stories and adventures.
There's a ton to explore.
But honestly, it's a little overwhelming. Like, where do you even begin with all of this?
Well, that's a common reaction.
Yeah.
It can be a lot, but remember, you don't have to conquer the galaxy or the mortal realms all at once.
Right.
The best way to start is to choose the setting that speaks to you the most.
Okay.
Like, what appeals to you more?
I don't know.
The gritty sci-fi of a war-torn future?
Hmm.
Or the magic and myth of this vibrant fantasy world?
Good point. It's all about finding your own entry point into this massive universe.
Exactly.
So let's say you've picked your setting. What's next? Where do you go from there?
Well, one of the best things you can do is visit a Games Workshop store.
Oh, yeah.
The staff there are usually super passionate about Warhammer. They can answer your questions, show you the ropes, maybe even let you try a demo game.
That's awesome.
And honestly, just being in that environment, surrounded by all the miniatures and books, it can be super inspiring.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
What if you're not ready to commit to a full tabletop experience just yet?
Right.
Are there other ways to explore these worlds?
Absolutely. They've got these start collecting boxes,
Okay.
which are a great way to get a small army and try things out.
Without spending a fortune.
Exactly. Plus, they often come with a simplified set of rules.
Nice.
So you can just start playing right away. And of course, there's YouTube.
Ah, good old YouTube.
A treasure trove of information, lore videos, painting tutorials, battle reports, and all sorts of stuff that can help you dive deeper into the factions and stories that interest you.
Those are some great suggestions.
Yeah.
So much to explore. But I have to admit, the sheer scale of these universes is a bit intimidating.
It is vast.
We've talked about Space Marines and Orcs, Stormcast Eternals, and Skaven, but what about everything else? Like, how deep does this rabbit hole really go?
It goes deep.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
We've touched on some of the most iconic factions.
Right.
But each one of these factions has a whole backstory.
Bro.
Tons of characters, sub-factions, rivalries to explore.
Oh, wow.
It's like each faction is its own little mini-universe within the larger Warhammer world.
So if I'm interested in, say, the Space Marines, what kind of rabbit hole could I fall down there?
Oh, man, you could get lost for days.
Really?
Each Space Marine chapter has its own unique history, traditions, ways of fighting.
No kidding.
Like you've got the Ultramarines,
I've heard of them.
known for like really sticking to the Codex Astartes,
Codex
the rulebook of Space Marine warfare.
Oh, okay.
Then you've got chapters like the Space Wolves, who are a bit more wild, a bit more independent. They embrace their Viking roots. And don't even get me started on the Dark Angels with their ancient secrets and their hunt for the fallen.
There's a lot going on there.
It's a whole thing. Each chapter is like a mini saga within the 40K universe.
So even within one faction, like the Space Marines, there's this whole other world of lore to uncover.
Oh, absolutely. And that's true for pretty much every faction.
Wow.
In both 40K and Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
You could spend ages just exploring the intricate society of the Eldar, their path system, or the endless schemes of the Skaven and their Council of 13.
It's mind-boggling, but also really exciting. Like there's always something new to learn, some new corner of the universe to explore.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes Warhammer so captivating, right? It's a universe that's constantly evolving, always expanding.
I like that.
Games Workshop is always adding new factions, new stories, and new ways to experience these worlds. It's a hobby that can grow with you, always offering new challenges and adventures.
I can definitely see how people get so passionate about it.
Oh,
But let's shift gears for a second.
okay.
We've talked a lot about factions and battles and lore, but what about the bigger picture? Like, what are some of the core philosophies or ideas that kind of underpin these Warhammer universes?
That's a great question. Warhammer, at its heart, it explores some pretty profound themes about humanity, power, the nature of conflict.
Interesting.
One of the most striking aspects, I think, is this moral ambiguity.
Moral ambiguity?
In both settings.
Okay.
Like, there are no clear-cut good guys and bad guys.
Yeah, that's true.
Even the Imperium of Man, you know, for all its supposed heroism,
Right.
it's a flawed and often brutal empire.
Right. We talked about how the Emperor is basically a corpse on life support, and the whole system kind of seems to run on fanaticism and fear.
Exactly.
It's not exactly a utopia.
No, not at all. And that's intentional, right?
Really?
Games Workshop wants us to think about these complexities of war,
Okay.
the compromises that are made in the name of survival, the cost of power. In both 40K and Age of Sigmar, those lines between hero and villain, they get really blurry.
That's what makes it so interesting. It's not just some simple black and white morality tale.
Right.
It forces you to think critically about the choices these factions make and the consequences.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that elevates Warhammer beyond simple escapism, you know.
Yeah.
It can spark real conversations about philosophy, ethics, what it means to be human.
I like that a lot.
But also, you know, on a lighter note, there's just something inherently cool about exploring these rich, detailed worlds, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. But before we wrap up, I have to ask, for someone totally new to all of this, where's a good place to start?
That's a common question, and it's understandable. It can feel really overwhelming.
It is a lot.
You have so much to explore.
Where do you even begin?
Well, the first step is to kind of figure out what sparks your interest.
Okay.
Is it the grim darkness of 40K? Or the high fantasy of Age of Sigmar? Is there a specific faction that catches your eye? Or maybe a particular event or period in the lore?
So start with what grabs your attention and go from there.
Exactly. Once you have a starting point, do some research.
Research.
YouTube is amazing for this.
Oh, yeah.
Lore videos, faction overviews, even battle reports. The Warhammer community is really active online.
It is.
You can find tons of information and inspiration just by searching for your area of interest.
And what about actually experiencing these worlds? I mean, we've talked about the tabletop games, but are there other ways to kind of dive in?
Absolutely. There's this whole multimedia empire built around Warhammer.
Really?
There are tons of novels set in both 40K and Age of Sigmar.
Wow.
Ranging from epic space operas to gritty war stories to character-driven dramas.
Oh, wow.
They're a great way to immerse yourself in the lore and get to know the characters who inhabit these worlds.
So for someone who loves a good story, the novels are a good place to start.
Definitely. And there's a Warhammer novel for pretty much every take. Plus, in recent years, Warhammer has become pretty popular in video games, too.
Video games? I didn't know that.
There are strategy games like Total War, Warhammer, where you can command massive armies.
Nice.
First-person shooters like Space Marine,
Okay.
where you get to experience the action from the perspective of a super soldier.
Sounds awesome.
There are even mobile games and card games that offer a more casual Warhammer experience.
Wow, so there really is a Warhammer game for everyone.
Pretty much. And the video games are just a great way to get a taste of the action and excitement of these universes, right?
Yeah.
You can control your favorite units, wage war against your enemies, even create your own stories within the game world.
It sounds like a fun way to experience the tabletop action without having to physically assemble and paint all those miniatures.
Exactly. And for those who are more visually inclined,
Right.
there's also a wealth of amazing artwork to explore.
Oh, yeah.
Games Workshop has some incredibly talented artists,
I've seen some of it.
creating stunning illustrations, concept art, even full-blown comics.
I've seen some of the Warhammer artwork online, and it's truly epic. It really captures the scale and grandeur of these universes.
It does. And the artwork is a great way to appreciate the visual design,
Yeah.
of the factions, the creatures, the vehicles, the environments. It's like a window into the imagination of the creators, and it can really spark your own creativity.
So we've got novels, video games, artwork.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much there is to explore beyond just the tabletop games themselves.
It's a whole world.
It sounds like there's a Warhammer experience for everyone.
There really is. And that's not even mentioning the amazing fan community.
The fan communities.
There are tons of websites, forums, online groups dedicated to Warhammer,
Yeah.
where fans share their passion, their creations, their knowledge. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah. The fan community is huge. I've seen some incredible cosplay and fan art online. People really go all out.
They do. And that sense of community is one of the things that makes Warhammer so special, right?
Yeah.
It's a hobby that brings people together from all walks of life,
I love that.
united by their love for these fantastical worlds.
It's pretty inspiring to see people so passionate about something, so creative, so willing to share their enthusiasm with others.
It is. And that's ultimately what makes Warhammer so much more than just a game or a hobby, right?
Right.
It's a shared experience,
Mhm.
a way to connect with others, and just this gateway to endless possibilities.
Well said. I think we've covered just about everything there is to cover in this epic Warhammer deep dive.
I think so.
We've explored the two settings, delved into the lore, even touched upon the philosophy and the different ways to experience these universes. It's been an amazing journey.
It really has. I hope we've inspired you to learn more about Warhammer.
Yeah.
And maybe even give it a try yourself.
I second that. Remember, there's a whole universe waiting for you to discover.
It is out there.
Choose your path, gather your forces, and embark on your own epic Warhammer adventure. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give us a like.